Amiibo were released in North America on November 21st, 2014, coinciding with the launch of Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, the first game to feature Amiibo support. Amiibo are a line of collectible figures themed around popular Nintendo characters. Each Amiibo figure features an NFC chip, a technology that lets the figure communicate with video game hardware. In this case, Nintendo's Wii U, new 3DS, and now Nintendo Switch consoles. An Amiibo reader peripheral was also released, which extended Amiibo support to owners of the original 3DS models as well. Amiibo support overall has had kind of a mixed reception over the years. While the Toys to Life concept of scanning figures to unlock certain content in video games was certainly novel at the time, I'd say it became less and less of a thrill as time went on. Wii U's Super Smash Bros. Marked the peak of Amiibo's popularity. In the game, players could scan Amiibo of their favorite fighters to create trainable CPU versions which could level up and be augmented with special moves, stat boosts, and bonus effects. Though they can unlock enjoyable bits of video game content, your mileage may vary, I'd argue that the main selling point of Amiibo has never been the game integration. Rather, Amiibo became popular due to the novelty of having officially licensed figurines of Nintendo characters. When it comes to Amiibo-compatible games, the figures have never really been a mandatory purchase. The vast majority of Amiibo-exclusive content is completely optional. There has only been one game so far that required the purchase of an Amiibo, and that was the Animal Crossing-themed virtual board game Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival for the Wii U. While new Amiibo are still being manufactured today, and upcoming games are still receiving Amiibo support, we are certainly beyond the peak. I, like many others, tend to view Amiibo through the rearview mirror, and in doing so, I often wonder what could have been for Nintendo's big push into the world of Toys to Life. When remembering Amiibo, I really don't think of any game content in particular. I think more of the figures themselves, and in some cases, the adventure it took to obtain them. But this is a shame. I think that during the height of its popularity, Nintendo could have made an Amiibo crossover title separate from Super Smash Bros. That incorporated characters and worlds from their wide stable of popular IP. However, factors like short supply and IP protection concerns might have been some reasons why this never happened. When I think of how Nintendo could have gone about making an Amiibo-focused title separate from Smash Bros., my mind first goes to perhaps the biggest direct comparison, Skylanders. Skylanders is an action-adventure, Toys-to-Life game developed by Activision that was also popular around the same time as Amiibo's peak popularity. While Skylanders fizzled out pretty hard toward the end of its run, it was a pretty captivating game in its heyday. After purchasing Skylanders figures, players could scan them on the Portal of Power, the game's NFC reader, which unlocks that character as playable within the game. This is a model Nintendo could have easily taken inspiration from to create their own action-adventure Amiibo title. New Super Amiibo All-Stars Deluxe could have maybe featured the same cast as Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS, or at least a pared-down version. Maybe they could have stuck only to the core heroes, or maybe selected a mix of classic characters and newer ones to try and appease both a young and older audience. I could see the game being sold Pokemon style with 3 different versions to choose from in the store. One would come bundled with Mario, another with Link, and a third with someone like Pikachu. Red, green, and yellow versions, if you will. And using that Amiibo you purchase with the game, you're able to scan in your starter character and get going on the quest. Then, more and more character figures from different franchises could be released in a staggered fashion, each of which would unlock different characters and new areas of the game. The Fox Amiibo would unlock Fox as a playable character and also unlock the Star Fox world, same goes for Kirby, and then Samus, and the list goes on and on. In essence, the more Amiibo you bought, the more content for this game you would unlock. Seems like easy money for Nintendo. I could also see the Amiibo figures playing a big role in the game's multiplayer elements. Perhaps a co-op multiplayer mode could be accessed by taking your Amiibo to a friend's house and scanning it on their console. That would spawn your exact character into their game world, allowing you to easily play co-op on a different console with the same character you play as at home. Particular character data like equipment, abilities, and stats would be saved to the figure, similar to how Amiibo training works in Super Smash Bros., which would make it easy to integrate your game with a friend's and take any progress made on a friend's console back to your own game. I think this is a pretty slick way of doing co-op, and it's honestly surprising that Nintendo didn't push this idea to its full potential. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but these ideas for an Amiibo-focused action-adventure game actually seem like they'd be a lot of fun. If it was the case that something like this ever did come to be, it's safe to say that I would have spent a lot of hours playing it. First of all, a crossover game featuring all of Nintendo's most popular IP is an attractive idea to start with. Add in the appeal of the Amiibo figures themselves, the multiplayer aspect, and the potential for ongoing content updates with new figure releases, and it's easy to see how a game like this could have been a big hit. So why didn't this actually happen? I'm almost certain the idea was proposed internally at Nintendo. So why might it have been shot down? There had to have been a problem with it. A barrier that eventually kept Nintendo Skylanders from ever getting off the ground. And no, I don't mean those things. I think it might have had something to do with product supply, the main problem with Amiibo in the first place. Back during the peak of the Amiibo craze, people were camping outside stores on release days and paying online resellers well over retail price just to get their hands on the figures that they wanted. When it came to the Super Smash Bros. Amiibo, popular characters like Link and Mario seemed to have higher stock numbers than something like a Wii Fit Trainer or Meta Knight, thus making certain characters harder to find in stores than others. Some Amiibo were exclusive to certain retailers as well, which added another layer to obtaining the rarer figures. Many people missed out on their favorite character figures completely due to low stock or retail exclusivity. If you didn't have a certain retailer that an Amiibo was exclusive to in your area, you are pretty much out of luck. And this presents a huge problem when it comes to our Amiibo adventure game. Important game content would be locked behind certain figures. It's one thing to paywall content behind a separate figure you need to purchase, but if the figure is not readily available for purchase in stores, that's a different problem entirely. If Nintendo was going to create this Amiibo adventure game, it would have to ensure that the supply of figures was going to be adequate, and maybe this was something they were not equipped to do. It's a real problem if people want to spend money on the figures to access the new content, but simply can't due to supply shortage. Plain and simple, this could lead to some real consumer outrage, and if the Smash Bros. Line was any indication, Nintendo wasn't in a place to supply ample stock of their figures, which could have definitely held back any plans for an Amiibo adventure game. But say Nintendo could supply the product stock to meet demand. In a world where I could walk into any retail store and pick any Amiibo I wanted off the shelf, I could see another potential reason as to why they did not go forward with an Amiibo adventure game. Historically, we know Nintendo to be very protective of their IP. This is why we don't see all that many crossover titles featuring Nintendo characters. Nintendo has a strong reputation for quality products, hence the name of this channel, and perhaps Nintendo saw too much of a risk in creating a game like this. Super Smash Bros. Is one thing. It's been a big success ever since its inception, and those waters have already been tested. We pretty much know what to expect from Smash Bros. As a crossover game. An Amiibo adventure game, on the other hand, is uncharted territory. Nintendo has built a lineup of many beloved characters over the years, and I'm willing to bet that they didn't want to cross-pollute their IP, especially if the game wasn't a success. A poorly reviewed crossover title could put a stain on some of their darling evergreen IP. IP protection is very important to Nintendo, and even though their internal developers would have likely been in complete control of the project, if there was a large amount of negative criticism or bad press around the game for any reason, which was relatively common with this Toys to Life type stuff, then that could potentially sour some of its IP and their reputation as a company. Supply issues and IP protection are two potentially valid reasons as to why an Amiibo adventure game product never materialized. Supply issues would have been an instant killer of the idea, as it would not have only been a PR nightmare, but it would also render significant amounts of the game content inaccessible by players. Nintendo couldn't really keep up with the demand for their Smash Bros. Line, so basing an entire game around these figures would have probably been a bad idea at the time. Figure production aside, throwing all of their major characters into the ring for a crossover game might have led to some trouble in itself. If the game failed to hit the mark or garnered any controversy around it, the golden reputation of Nintendo's IP risked being damaged. Nintendo takes great care in their IP as it is one of their greatest assets. Maybe a Nintendo Amiibo game akin to Skylanders was just too risky of a proposition. Although Nintendo is still trickling out Amiibo to this day, I don't see a game like this coming anytime soon. Would I welcome the possibility? Sure I would. But for now, looking back and imagining what could have been for Amiibo is probably the closest we'll get.
When the going gets tough, the tough tap Amiibo.